Hello well-wishers and welcome to my channel Aspiring Minds. In today's video, we are going to discuss a poem by Walter De La Mare called The Listeners, and it's a very spooky poem. So grab your virtual seats and let's begin. Walter De La Mare was an English poet, a short story writer and a novelist. He is known for his contributions to the literary world, particularly in the realms of children's literature and the supernatural. His works often explore the themes of imagination, mystery, the eerie, spooky incidents, which will also be evident in the poem that we are going to be doing today. The Listeners was published in the year 1912 in his poetry collection called The Listeners and Other Poems. And this poem deals with Walter De La Mare's fascination with the mysterious, the unknown. It is a narrative poem, yes, and it will have in it a supernatural meeting between a traveler and an unseen ghostly listeners in an old abandoned house. Let us now decode the line-by-line meaning of the poem. "Is there anybody there?" said the traveller, knocking on the moonlit door, and his horse, in the silence, champed the grasses of the forest's ferny floor. Now, the word moonlit means the time of the day is the night time, and at that time a traveler stops in front of a house and he starts knocking on the door where there is moonlight falling on it. The traveler is traveling with a horse, and the horse is chewing on the grass which is there on the floor of this foresty area, and the floor is not a very friendly floor, I would say, because it has pokey fern like growth on it. And a bird flew up out of the turret above the traveler's head, and he smote upon the door again a second time. "Is there anybody there?" he said. So at this time, when he was knocking, there is a bird which suddenly emerges from the turret above the traveler. Now the traveler sees that there is no response from within the house, so he knocks on the door once again, repeating his inquiry about if anybody is at all there inside the house. But no one descended to the traveller. No head from the leaf-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his grey eyes, where he stood perplexed and still. So descended means that no one comes down to open the door, and at the same time the window sill has overgrowth of leaves on it, and from there also no one peeps down to inquire about who is knocking at the door. And at this time we see that the traveler is standing there in front of the door, and he is very confused, and he has no clue about what is happening. But only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to that voice from the world of men. So instead of human occupants, it is said that the house was inhabited by a group of ghostly listeners. Now these phantoms, unseen, were yet present over there. They were attentively listening to the traveler's voice in the stillness of the moonlit night. It is a little spooky because you cannot see anything, but you understand that there's someone listening to you. So that is the scene which is portrayed here about the listeners. Stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by the lonely traveller's call. So the ghostly listeners crowd the moonlit staircase leading to the vacant or the empty hall. They listen very keenly in an atmosphere which is suddenly shaken up by the traveller's calling, creating an otherworldly ambience. It is as if you are living and suddenly you hear a crow or a bird's chirping. It breaks your chain of thought. So that's what's happening over here, that the listeners were living in this particular house, and with the call of the traveler, the silence of their house is broken, and he felt in his heart their strangeness, their stillness answering his cry, while his horse moved, cropping the dark turf neath the starred and leafy sky. So the traveler is able to sense the strange nature of these listeners. He is being able to feel their silent response to his plea or request. Meanwhile, the horse is gazing on the dark turf which is there beneath the starry sky. Even animals are able to sense something eerie or spooky. So even the horse is trying to look around and make sense of what is happening. And at the same time, the traveler cannot see anything, but he is somehow being able to feel and sense the presence of these ghostly listeners. For he suddenly smote on the door even louder and lifted his head. Tell them I came and no one answered, that I kept my word, he said. So the traveler is very frustrated and irritated, and he pounds on the door. He starts knocking at the door once again, raising his voice. He instructs these invisible listeners to be informed that he had come. No one responded, emphasizing that he kept his promise to come over here, but no one is responding to him. Nevertheless, stir made the listeners, though every word he spake fell echoing through the shadowiness of the still house from the one man left awake. So the listeners still remained unmoved and silent. Every word uttered by the traveler almost echoed through this shadowy, quiet house, and it started reaching the one being that was awake among them. They heard his foot upon the stirrup, and the sound of the iron on stone, and how the silence surged softly backward when the plunging hoofs were gone. So, over here, the ghostly listeners are able to understand the sound of the traveler as he is preparing to leave. They can hear his foot on the stirrup and the clink or the sound of the iron on the stone. Now, as the silence is restored once again after the departure of the sound of the horse's hooves and the sound which was at all being made by the traveler, the supernatural beings stay there undisturbed. The first theme of the poem is isolation. This deserted house where no one stays, there is no response that is given at all to the traveler or the horse. The supernatural beings, the supernatural elements in the form of listeners in the poem, therefore exhibit the theme of isolation and abandonment. They don't care about human beings. Secondly, the inability of the living traveler to connect with the ghostly listeners highlights the communication gap that exists between the different realms of life, the different realms of existence, that is, between the living and the supernatural. And thirdly, the poem explores the mysterious, the supernatural elements through the presence of the unseen spectral beings who inhabit this old house. So we can say that the poem presents a mysterious and haunting narrative that deals with the themes of isolation, communication gap, and the supernatural. And this atmosphere which is created, combined with the traveler's futile or useless attempts to bridge the gap between the living and the supernatural elements, leaves the readers with a sense of mystery about unanswered questions. So that's it from this video. I hope you liked it. Do hit the like button. Subscribe to my channel for more such future updates. Thank you for watching. Bye.